after many problems, after being postponed, canceled, postponed again. It was a total mess. But finally, all the episodes of the series Win or Lose premiered on Disney+, Pixar's first original series. And today, we're going to share our honest opinion on what we think about this series. Welcome to Cine Lovers. Man, it was supposed to premiere at the end of 2023, in December, but then it got canceled, postponed, canceled again. Dude, I was so happy that it finally came out because it's really good. It was worth the wait. It's awesome. So, let's talk about the story. Win or Lose revolves around a softball team. The team's name is Pickles. They're a group of kids who go to school and in their free time participate in the softball championship with their coach. The series has 8 episodes, each lasting about 17 to 18 minutes. On Disney+, it shows as 20 to 25 minutes, but a lot of that time is just credits. Episodes of 17 to 18 minutes are a relief for us because when Pixar used to release series like Monsters at Work and Cars on the Road, they were always super short, like 5 to 7 minutes. Now, we finally have a proper series. One really cool thing about the story is that each episode has a different protagonist. That's amazing! In the first episode, something big happens in the championship, but we don't fully understand it. Then, throughout the series, we see the events from each character's perspective until we reach the championship's grand finale. That's so cool! It's like a puzzle, where some scenes repeat but from different angles, explaining the characters' reactions. If you've watched Back to the Future, the best movie ever, especially the second one, it has a similar vibe. When you revisit a scene from the past but with new information, everything suddenly makes sense. This is a huge plus for the series. Another positive point is your like on this video. It's free and helps us bring more content to the channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, let's hit 20,000 on Cine Lovers. One thing that stands out in the series is how the characters' emotions are represented. For example, there's Frank, the umpire who's also a teacher. He wears armor to hide his insecurities, something no one else sees, but the audience notices. This happens with other characters as well. Another interesting character is Ewan. At first, he seems super annoying, but later, he shows his more sensitive side. There's a scene where he reveals a secret, and to represent that, he appears as a cardboard cutout in a theater. This visual representation is really cool and shows how he hides his feelings. We also have Lori, the coach's daughter, who has an imaginary friend that actually represents her anxiety. This reflects the weight of expectations and the pressure she feels. This kind of approach makes the characters deeper and more relatable. Overall, Win or Lose delivers an innovative and emotional narrative with well-developed characters and a visually creative representation of emotions. And what about you? What did you think of the series? Leave your comment. Anyway, her sweat formed this creature that grew bigger as her fear increased. So the more fear and anxiety she had, the larger it became. It was something that was completely taking over her. She walked upside down, discouraged, because it was weighing on her. This representation was physically there for us to see, but in reality, it wasn't something physical. It was like an invisible burden on her, and we can clearly see it. As anxiety builds up inside her, the creature grows too. But little by little, she starts gaining confidence and letting go of that anxiety, that sweat that had turned into a character. And the coolest thing is that as she overcomes it, the creature shrinks until it completely disappears. You can even notice how her posture changes. When a creature is big and heavy on her, she walks hunched over, carrying that weight on her back. But as she starts to free herself, she gradually straightens up and stands tall again. You can really see this transformation. Speaking of that, the transitions in this series are incredible. We have to talk about it. The editing, the cuts, the scene changes. When it goes back to a previous scene, it's stunning to watch. I think it's one of the strongest visual aspects of the series. Everything is so fluid. It looks like a moving painting. You have to watch it to really understand what I mean. The characters change. The environment changes, but it still feels like the same place. The editing is super dynamic. Another thing that turned out really well was how they represented different situations, like in episode 2 when Frank, the umpire, downloads a dating app. It's brilliant. They portrayed the app like a little game. He browses through people, sees who wants to send a heart, and the conversation happens like a growing ball that expands as the chat flows. So creative. Actually, I think that's the best word to describe the series. Creative. Besides that, it's also interesting because even though the main story revolves around the softball championship, we get to see the personal lives of the main characters. These are normal people with real-life problems. There's the girl who doesn't get attention from her mom, the other girl with a super demanding father who never thinks anything is good enough. Frank, the teacher, also has his own story, just like the other characters. Even Frank's dating life and the bad friendships are part of the narrative. By the way, there's an episode that talks about bad friendships, and this theme is handled really well. A younger character wants to make friends and ends up getting getting involved with high schoolers who aren't exactly the best influence. The series shows the consequences of these choices and how they can impact someone. And here's something interesting. Even though it's from Pixar, this series isn't for all ages. It has a PG-12 rating because it deals with more serious and mature themes. But it's not just for 12-year-olds to watch. I think parents should also see it, not only to watch alongside their kids, but also to understand the messages the series conveys. This becomes clear because the story doesn't just revolve around the younger characters. Frank, the teacher, also has his own journey. The team's coach goes through a transformation. And there's Vanessa, the mother of one of the girls, who even gets an entire episode dedicated to her. In the end, the series delivers lessons for everyone. Besides being visually stunning, it has a well-structured story, interesting characters, and an impeccable aesthetic. It's definitely worth watching. Another strong point of the series, which any movie lover and Pixar fan will notice, is the references. There are tons of Pixar Easter eggs, like the classic Pixar ball and the Pizza Planet truck, which appear multiple times. Plus, there are references to other movies and the film industry in general, which I found really interesting. If you'd like, we can even make a video just about that later. Now, about expectations, we have to talk about how this might be Pixar's best series and possibly the best animated series I've ever watched. Usually, animated series have simpler, shorter stories, like Cars on the Road. While it's visually well made, it's a light series without major events. Others, like Monsters at Work, are fun too, but their animation quality isn't as impressive. But Win or Lose is different. The animation quality is flawless, and the story is truly engaging. It's not shallow, it has depth and meaning. I don't know if there will be a second season. The ending leaves a small hook, but the story also wraps up well. If there is a second season, I'd definitely watch it because the plot is really captivating. One thing Pixar does really well is breaking expectations, and this series continues that tradition. You expect one thing, but something else happens. This has happened in many Pixar movies, like in Cars, where you think Lightning McQueen is going to win, but he doesn't. Or in Up, where you think Carl will take his house to the final destination, but he ends up leaving it behind. And Win or Lose does the same thing. The characters spend the whole series trying to win the championship, but in the end, they don't. This keeps the story from becoming generic and predictable. Even though we were rooting for their victory, the way the series ends makes sense and makes the story even more compelling. Another example of this is Lori, the coach's daughter. She works hard to improve at softball, but in the end, she realizes she doesn't want to continue and decides to try something else. Her own father, who is also the coach, tells her it's never been about being the best. It's about trying your best. And that's exactly what she did. So, to sum it up, this series is unmissable. If you haven't watched it yet, give it a chance. And then come back here to tell us what you think. Do you agree with what I said? Or do you disagree? Let us know. And if you're a Pixar fan, and I know you are because you made it this far, there are tons of other videos about the Pixar universe here on the channel. Things you might not even know. Check them out and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video here on Cine Lovers.